Danielle Jones was a 15-year-old schoolgirl who lived in East Tilbury in Essex. Let's have a look at the area for those of you who maybe don't know. East Tilbury, Essex, UK, just down here, near London, near Southend-on-Sea, on the River Thames. And that is where Danielle Jones lived. According to those who knew her, she was timid but popular. She was close to her family, but she had some of the usual teenage issues. Danielle's parents, Linda and Tony Jones, said that their daughter loved her pet rabbits, the band Steps, and the singer Robbie Williams. The youngest of three siblings, Danielle was a normal teenager who sang along to pop music in her bedroom, and she wanted to work with children after leaving school. She was tall, around 5'7", blonde, a girl on the threshold of becoming a woman. She had a bright future working with children in front of her. On the morning of the 18th of June 2001, at around 8 a.m, she left home to go to school, walking to the local bus stop. She was late, as usual, her mother said, but was happy and normal. Her blonde hair was tied back in a ponytail. She was wearing her black school blazer, white shirt, striped tie and grey skirt. She was never seen again. Let's chat. So hey, it's me, Vicky Marie, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world that we live in. So in today's video, we're going to talk about Danielle. What happened to Danielle? What was the result? Where did she disappear to? That morning, which was just a normal school morning when her mum said goodbye to her. She went off to school as normal. She never ever saw her daughter again. So first of all, thank you for those of you who like, subscribe. Special thanks to my members, all of you that watch my videos. Thank you so much. And if you want to see videos about true crime or interesting chats in general, please consider subscribing. Thank you. So Danielle, what happened to her that morning? Now, for various reasons that we're going to go into, suspicion immediately fell on Danielle's uncle, Stuart Campbell. As soon as Danielle disappeared, he was under suspicion from the very beginning. This is Stuart. Now, we'll look at various pictures of Stuart. That was when he was a bit younger. He's got that Paul Young look about him. Looks a little bit like Paul Young. So he's quite a handsome guy. And Stuart was married to Debbie. And he was a builder and a keen bodybuilder from Grays in Essex. He was married to Debbie, who was the sister of Danielle's father. And because of this, he was Danielle's uncle through marriage. Danielle had been a bridesmaid at their wedding. And Stuart was a father of two. Now, it's funny, I'm just looking at this picture of the wedding. I hadn't really noticed before, but I take it this is Debbie, the bride. She's a little bit taller than Stuart, isn't she? Now, Danielle, when she died, was 5'7", which is quite tall, isn't it, for a 15-year-old? Well, tall for a woman, you know, it's on the tall side, if you like. So maybe Stuart, for some reason, he liked tall women. But unfortunately, Stuart actually did not really like women, as we're going to find out. Stuart's predilection was more for girls, for children. This is a photo of him and Debbie on holiday at some point. I feel for Debbie because if she didn't know anything about his, you know, he had a past, and we're going to look into that, but maybe Debbie didn't know about that. I think the theme that we'll see all the way through this is that these sort of child lovers, they groom not only the child, but they groom the family as well. And Danielle's family was also groomed. And unfortunately, they did not see the evil that was literally in plain sight and had access to their daughter. So he was a builder, a bodybuilder, a handsome father of two. And as it turned out, he was also a keen photographer. He was first arrested on the 23rd of June 2001, 5 days after Danielle went missing. Now, it's thought that detectives had delayed his arrest a little while, even though immediately they suspected him, because they were presuming that she could still be alive and being held somewhere against her will. And so they were hoping that maybe, just maybe, Stuart Campbell could lead them to her. Now, on the 18th of September 2002, human remains were discovered by mushroom pickers in Yateley Heath Woods, near Yateley in Hampshire. Initially, when these remains were found, they were thought to be those of Danielle, but they were actually those of Millie Dowler, another missing teenage girl. A very, very high-profile case again. Millie had been a victim of serial killer Levi Belfield. You probably remember Millie's case. It was a very high-profile case. It brought out, there was allegations of phone hacking. It brought up the Levison inquiry, which is now why nowadays mainstream media is very careful what they say, etc. They weren't in those days, and mainstream media is very jealous, I think, of social media, who still can say quite a lot without as yet being chastised for it. But then the mainstream media were just as bad, if not worse, would literally say anything, headlines, were, lured. Phones were hacked, all sorts of practices to get stories. So these remains that were found that originally were thought to be Danielle's, because even though Stuart Campbell had been arrested and was going to be charged, had been charged, Danielle's remains had not yet been found. So when they found these remains, it was initially thought, because of the age of the remains, that it could be Danielle, but it turned out to be Millie. And then, ironically enough, on the 21st of April on 2001, a previous body that had been found that was thought to be Millie, that was actually Hannah Williams, who was another 14-year-old girl who went missing. She went missing during a shopping trip in Dartford, Kent, and her body was discovered on the 15th of March at a cement works in an industrial area of Northfleet. Now, you may never have even heard of Hannah. Her disappearance did not cause anywhere near the media or public interest of those of Millie and Danielle. So I'll be doing a deep dive into her case at another time and looking into the reasons why. Why did Millie and Danielle's case cause so much publicity? Why was there so much coverage? And yet poor Hannah, virtually no coverage. You probably don't even know who she is. So Hannah was thought to be Millie. Millie was thought to be Danielle. So many teenage girls stolen from this world. Anyway, going back to Danielle, because this story is all about Danielle, bless her. So Campbell was arrested, and the police then went into his home and found lots of evidence then, because he was finally convicted. But even though to this date, Danielle's body has still not been found. Where is Danielle's body? Anyway, one of the first things they found was a diary. The police found what they called the Danielle diary when they searched his home. It was a diary written by Campbell, and it listed every time he met, called, or heard from Danielle. I mean, it's pathetic, really. It's more like what teenage girl would write than a grown man. I mean, if you found that diary or a similar diary in Danielle's room, you wouldn't be surprised, would you? I mean, this is what teenage girls do. I certainly wrote a diary. I don't know about you. But he wrote a diary just like a teenage girl. Every time he saw her, every time they had an argument, or every time he took her, he would take her shopping for his children's clothes and things. And look, the sort of things that he would say. I wouldn't, aware of texting because of her stroppy attitude. He would record every incident, every encounter with Danielle. That was the depth of his obsession. And not only that he wrote it all down, but after he killed Danielle, he did not destroy that diary. This always surprises me. To me, it's incredible that he didn't dispose of it, and because it revealed clearly the extent of his obsession with Danielle. He must surely have known that as Danielle's uncle, he would come under suspicion, at least be considered as someone that had to be eliminated from inquiries. And then when it was discovered, because he had previous convictions, Stuart Campbell had convictions for really abuse, for being an sex pest. So he must have known that would come out. So why did he keep this diary? Just couldn't bring himself to throw it away, could he? Anyway, one of the officers involved in her case said it was noting various incidents, including the two of them. There was a lot of detail, almost an obsession. And when a grown man, because he was in his 40s, started acts like that about writing a diary about his 15-year-old niece, all of their interactions, it's beyond weird, it is creepy, it's unsettling, it's disturbing. Now, this case reminds me so much of Stefan Stearns and Madeleine Soto. I think if we look into this case, as we look into this case today, we will get a lot of insight into how it was with Madeleine Soto. These people, they are good at what they do. They're good at grooming. They're good at interjecting themselves as a mediator. This is what he did. Interjected himself as a mediator between Danielle and her parents. He would say to Danielle, "Oh, what, they won't let you do that? Oh my God, I would have let you do that if you were my daughter. I don't see the problem. Oh, they're too strict with you, blah, de, blah, de, blah." And then he would go to Danielle's parents and say, "I said to Danielle, she's got to start taking more notice of what you say. She's got to start pulling herself together and be respectful to you." He would just play both sides. He was the one in the middle. Does that sound familiar? Stefan Stearns. I'm the mediator. I'm the go-to person. I'm the one that calms things down. And in the meantime, really what they're doing is grooming. Jen Soto was groomed just as Maddie was groomed, in my opinion. Anyway, he had photos of young girls in his possession, hundreds of photos, sick images of young girls. Some were downloaded from the internet, but also he would lure young girls to his home, and he would do this by pretending he was a talent scout from a bogus photographic agency called Cinderella, and he would give out his business cards to young girls that he just saw. This is his business card. Cinderella's photography, beauty, glamour, portrait, fashion, portfolios for new and established models. He's using his real name, Stuart, his phone number. That's how blatant he was. And he would take these girls back to his home. And he had a little studio set up in the living room. He had tripods, etc. I mean, what did Debbie think of all this? This is what makes you wonder, isn't it? But men like this, they're experts in lying, explaining. It seemed like he did it in full view because the tripods and that were around in the living room. I don't think it was a secret, but obviously she probably didn't know that it was just young girls he was taking back there. Don't know what she knew or what she didn't know. But she was groomed too, just as Madeleine Soto, in my opinion, was groomed. These men, this Stuart Campbell, I mean, if that isn't a face of evil looking at you, I don't know what is. But of course, not all these photos he looks evil. He was sociable. He was good looking. He had friends. He had a social life. He had a job. He wasn't a gibbering wreck. He wasn't like some sort of, they're not, these predators, they're not. They fade into the background because they're what you might call normal, whatever normal is. Now, he definitely was not normal. I think on that picture you can see it. But on some of the others, the pictures that we have of him, would you know? How would you know? I mean, I believe he said some quite odd things, but, it's difficult, isn't it? Especially when it's someone in your family, Anyway, I think that's the picture that shows the real Stuart, in my opinion. So he was doing that. And then he would photograph the young girls in bikinis and underwear, which, of course, the police... Now, I'm really surprised. I don't believe that any photos of Danielle were found. I don't think so. Not that I've heard about. So what did he? I can't believe for a minute that he didn't take photos of Danielle. I just don't believe it. This was his thing, taking photos, that he took of the other girls. Why were no photos found of Danielle? And it makes me wonder if he took those and hid those with wherever he's hidden Danielle's body, somewhere that only he knows, his secret little place. But then why didn't he put the diary in there as well? It's it's a conundrum, really, because, didn't have much time to dispose of her body. You need to get rid, they think that she was, he picked her up probably around about 9 o'clock that morning as she was on her way to school or earlier. And probably by midday, poor Danielle was no longer with us. So, but he knew that he wouldn't have much time, to dispose of her, because she would be missed as soon as she didn't come back from school. Anyway, apparently in 1987, 2 girls aged 15 and 16 were approached by Campbell in the street, and they agreed to meet him the following day. Now, there's been many predators that have caught their victims this way. Many serial killers, that's what they do, pretend they're a photographer. Young girls are impressionable, aren't they? As someone, a handsome guy comes up to you, offers you money to come and do, it's just a photo shoot, don't have to do anything, especially when there's 2 of them as well. So he'd go up to 2 of them, they would feel more emboldened because they weren't on their own, wouldn't they? So it's a common trick, or it was. I mean, everything's more difficult these days, I think, because those were more innocent times, and those girls wouldn't have any reason to suspect him. But anyway, he told them to bring their school uniforms when they came for the photo shoot round to his house. He took them to his house and he photographed one girl topless on his bed, wearing stockings and suspenders. So this was obviously his thing. But imagine that. So when poor Debbie got back from work, she didn't know that he'd been photographing young girls half naked on their bed. Anyway, 4 months before Danielle disappeared, Campbell is alleged to have approached 2 young girls at a gym. He offered to take photographs of them. He handed over his Cinderella's business card, and computer experts discovered that Campbell had downloaded child pee pictures from several internet sites. One of the officers said, "The photos didn't end up anywhere. They weren't in any publication. This was just him getting his jollies, making out he was a glamour photographer. He absolutely had a type, and Danielle was his type." Well, I've just remembered it was Rodney Alcala in America, the dating game killer, because he'd appeared on the dating game on a TV program that matched up singletons, and he'd won. But luckily for her, the woman who'd picked him, she picked him out of 3. It was like a blind date type thing, where you couldn't see the person, but there's 3 people she had to choose from. She chose Rodney Alcala. He was already a serial killer by then. Anyway, luckily when she actually met up with him, she found him creepy, so she decided not to go on the date. But he would do that. He took lots of pictures. When he was apprehended, they found hundreds and hundreds of pictures that they haven't been able to trace. And I think they're still available on the FBI website or some sort of website, because they've localized some of those people. And there weren't only girls, there were girls, women, but there were also boys as well. And there's still lots of people that haven't come forward to say that those photos were them. So you'd be embarrassed, wouldn't you? Well, some of them probably were killed because he killed so many people. But also, if you were still alive and you saw that, you'd be probably a bit embarrassed to go and admit you'd let Rodney Alcala take your photo. So this guy is a little bit like him, isn't he? So Anyway, the other thing, or one of the many other things that helped convict him, were the notes that he left for Danielle. Because when she went away on holiday once, and other times when he'd start to get a bit jealous and think, maybe she was going out from under his power. I wouldn't be surprised. I've thought, do you think? Because he seemed to have this hold over Danielle. She didn't want to go to her parents. Had something happened between them, and maybe she was too embarrassed to go to her parents, because he would then get all sort of jealous if she went on a school trip, or if there was any time that he couldn't contact her. And he even went to the lengths of going into her house, where he was, I think, fitting some patio doors, and planting notes in her bedroom. That's quite risky thing to do, isn't it? So it just makes you wonder if something had happened between them, if he had already abused her, and now she was turning around and saying, no, 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 I'm not doing this anymore. Or maybe nothing had ever happened yet, and maybe it was just coming to the brink. I'm not sure, we don't know. We'll never know, because unfortunately Danielle is no longer with us. He's not going to say, that he had already had relations with her, or abused her, I should say. So after her disappearance, her school friends told her parents that they had found notes in her pencil case, and while she was in class, that she had found some notes in her pencil case while she was in class that had upset her. So her mum then went through her things and found 2 notes signed by Campbell, which appeared to show he was jealous that she'd recently gone on holiday with her friends, with her parents. It was never clear how he got the notes into her school pencil case. So one read, "Hi Princess, hope you had a lovely holiday. Text me when you get back. Love, Stuart, kiss." That's not a note from an uncle, is it? Just makes me, he thought he was having a relationship with Danielle, in his head anyway. Another said, "Hi Princess, in case you missed my last note, I just thought I'd pop in another one to let you know that I do miss your smile." Let's have a look at a photo of them. I mean, it just knocks you sick, doesn't it? "Hi Princess." Gosh. So these notes are not right, are they? Now, why did Danielle not tell her friends or her family about this? Why, I wonder. And, it's making me wonder if maybe at some point, maybe when she was younger, he did manage to, abuse her. Maybe he was holding something against her. Maybe he had the photos. Maybe, in fact, that's just occurred to me. Did he have photos of Danielle that he was threatening to show, compromising photos that he was threatening to show her parents? That's a possibility, isn't it? And the thing is, he had when they found the evidence, a lot of evidence that they found in his house, chloroform. There was, he was acquainted with chloroform, let's say. So had he knocked her unconscious, took compromising photos of her, and then was threatening to tell her parents? Because I just wonder why she did not speak to anybody. It's terrifying that a child of that age, a girl of that age, has to keep those secrets. He must have had, must have been able to blackmail her in some way. Or maybe initially when she was younger, she thought she was in love with him, and as she got older, a bit like we think might have happened with Madeline Soto, did she get to a certain age and think, no, I'm not doing this anymore? Anyway, another thing was his previous convictions. Officers revealed that Campbell had gotten into trouble with the police before her disappearance. Now, apparently, her family did know that he had convictions, but they did not know the full details. And also, he had said that he'd been acquitted. So he had the previous conviction and offence for the abduction of a 14-year-old girl in 1989, and he was convicted of taking a child without lawful authority. Then the blue transit van. Police carrying out house-to-house enquiries near Danielle's home after she was reported missing were told that she or a girl matching her description had been seen talking to someone in a blue transit van. Other neighbours had seen a blue transit van around the estate, described as being near certain points where Danielle was travelling to school. And the only person Danielle's mother, Linda, knew who owned a blue van at that time was Stuart. And he had even used the van to pick Danielle up from the bus stop in the past. Another thing that she had at one point, Danielle's mum, Linda, said that once she remembered Campbell dropping Danielle back home after she'd been at his house, and she ran upstairs straight to her room. Campbell had told Linda that Danielle had taken a funny turn and passed out and wet herself. So the concerned mum saw some marks on her neck, but she assumed they were from the chain she was wearing. Danielle told her mum she had passed out, and she was upset and embarrassed when she recalled the incident to her mum. So that sounds like he'd had a go at her then, doesn't it, really? So police believe that he had attempted to incapacitate her and assault her that day, after finding notes about chloroform in his diary and a statement from a neighbour who had heard a disagreement between him and a young girl who they believed to be Danielle, telling him she didn't have to do anything she didn't want to. Oh no, hearing him saying you don't have to do anything she doesn't want to. So he'd obviously had other attempts. Maybe he'd succeeded, as I say, on some occasions, and maybe he had some incriminating photos. You know, maybe we'll never know unless they're ever found. Then there was a witness sighting on that morning. The police spoke to a witness who saw and heard a girl who matched Danielle's description on that very morning that she went missing. By the way, this is not his actual red blue transit van. I don't think it's just an example of a transit van. Just want to put Danielle back up there. So yeah, police spoke to this witness. The girl said she'd seen a girl arguing with a man who fitted Campbell's description, and the young girl was shouting, "No, leave me alone. Go away, you pervert." A second witness saw a girl who could have been Danielle slumped that same morning in the front seat of a blue van. Then some DNA evidence was found in his loft. A holdall containing bikinis, underwear, handcuffs was found in the loft of Campbell's house by police. A DNA sample was taken from the toe of a pair of stockings, which showed both Danielle's and Campbell's DNA mixed together. White stockings. A lip gloss, which Danielle bought at Lakeside to match her friends, had also been found at his home, and that also had her DNA on it. And this was all very incriminating evidence when it came to trial, and Danielle's friend, testified about the lip gloss. So again, why did he hang on to these things? Surely as soon as he realised that Danielle was no longer with us and he had to dispose of her body, why did he not dispose of all these things? the diary, the evidence. Very strange, that he did not dispose of those things, in my opinion, or maybe he was planning on doing that. So apparently detectives described the relationship between Campbell and his niece and Danielle as grossly inappropriate. He had carved a role in Danielle's life as a mediator between her and her parents. He was expecting a baby with his wife and frequently asked her to go baby shopping with him in order to spend time with her. So her own friends had raised concerns and her parents had noticed that something wasn't right. But he had cleverly become Danielle's confidant and mediator between her and her parents. He would tell her, as I explained earlier, I would have let you do that. And she would say, and then he would say to them, I told her she needs to listen to you more. I think we must never forget how easy it is to fool someone who is not bad-minded. If your mind doesn't work on that track that his mind was working on, it's very difficult to see through it, because most people, this is again what I think about with Jan, whether being dopey or whatever, naive, but some people just doesn't even occur to them. It's easy to fool someone who is not a bad thinker like you. Groomers groom families too. So, and then after Danielle went missing, he was difficult to get hold of. And Danielle's mum said that when we did get hold of him, his behaviour just wasn't correct for a concerned uncle. Once when her husband went round to the house, he didn't answer the door, though Danielle's dad felt it very strongly that he was there. And when he looked through the window of the living room, he saw tripods and other photographic equipment set up in the living room. And as I say, for me, I cannot believe there's not photos of Danielle somewhere, probably concealed with her body. That's what he did. He took photos. Are we really to believe that he murdered Danielle, took advantage of her or whatever he did to her, and at the same time he didn't bother taking any photographs when he took photographs all the time? I'm 100% certain he took photos. And yeah, what did his wife, Debbie, think about this equipment in the living room? Did she know about the modelling agency? Did she know anything? Another reason, that went against him, if you like, for his conviction was he'd given a false alibi. He told police he'd been shopping at a DIY store when she went missing, and he even called his wife on the way home to let her know he'd been stuck in traffic. But detectives trawled hours of CCTV, looked for his van or the family's car. Neither he or the vehicles appeared in any surrounding CCTV, and officers were convinced his alibi was fake. And I'm just reading that now about the silver car, because I'll tell you at the end, when I do these cases, and I always feel like I've got the victims around me, and I was trying to focus on Danielle as to where she was. And I'm not psychic. I'm not saying I'm a psychic, but sometimes I get feelings about things. And all the feeling that I keep getting about Danielle, I get ropes, which I suppose is possible that he tied her up or whatever. But I get this very clear picture of ropes and a car, and that's it. I know it's useless. It's not really. I'm going to try and develop on it. I'm going to try and meditate on it and see. That's what I get. I get ropes and a car. And funnily enough, until I've just read through that again, because I prepared this yesterday before I got this feeling about, I hadn't really read that properly about the car. I was presuming that he would have taken her away in the van, but maybe he thought that the van would be too obvious, and too easily noticeable. I mean, he must have had some awareness of CCTV. Anyway, I don't know. So they had, so they didn't find his blue transit van anywhere or the family silver car. I don't know if this was at the times when, it was easy to recognise. I don't know when it became easy to recognise matriculars, to recognise registration plates. Maybe you could do it then, but anyway, they didn't find anything. So they did use some mobile phone evidence, and this was new at the time in 2002 when the trial happened. But prosecutors were able to prove that both his and Danielle's phones were using the same cell tower. So that's probably in the early days of using digital evidence. I'm going to put Danielle back up on there. Now, apparently, after she went missing, Campbell turned her phone on, sent himself a message, and then turned the phone off. Now, how thick is he? They're always a bit thick. These, in the end, they think they're clever. But he turned the phone on, sent himself a message, not her mum and dad. Not, it would have looked more genuine, wouldn't it, if he would have sent messages to, the most important person in her life. Why would she send a message to her uncle when she's gone missing? Anyway, this message was used in court, and the prosecutors proved that the text messages, which were supposed to be from her, used different language than to what she used. They spelt what as W-O-T, whereas she always spelt it W-H-A-T. And this was reference to messages to other friends, all the messages that she sent to her friends. Also, he sent the message in capitals, and it was known that Danielle did not use capitals on her messages. Listen to the message. Hi, Stu. Thanks with a Z on the end for the number 4 being so nice. You are the best uncle ever! Exclamation mark. Tell mum I'm so sorry. Love ya loads. So it's love ya, Luvya, loads, Loadz, Dan. Kiss, kiss, kiss. All in capitals. So the message was sent in uppercase, but Danielle habitually sent messages in lowercase. And also, why of all the people she could have contacted, including her parents, would she have contacted him? She would contact either her parents or her friends. She won't contact her uncle. Now, text messages can be easily faked, of course, but now it's known, isn't it? People have styles. People who try to do this these days, they have to realise that the police can look through old messages. They can check if there's a tone to how people send messages, isn't there? And actually, this is where this examination of text started. The use of text message evidence in the trial led to a study group at the University of Leicester began then. I mean, it's probably been concluded, the study now. Text messaging styles under the hypothesis that forensic research into authorship analysis of such messages might help in future criminal cases, which of course it has. Look at David Knežević, sent those messages to his wife Anna's friends and family, where it turned out it got translated from some woman in Colombia. People, the family immediately said, and her friends immediately said, these are not messages from Anna. People recognize the way people send messages. If they put a kiss on the end, their tone, what they normally say, how they spell words. Do they use quick text? Some people never use quick text. They write out the whole thing. Other people, you can't even hardly understand the message because it's all quick text. Anyway, it was found suspicious in his police interview that he was very calm. He didn't have any, never displayed the feelings of a concerned uncle, no eye contact. And his interview was described as bizarre and disturbing by the detective who interviewed him. He'd replied no comment more than 50 times in the 20-minute interview. That's shades of Levi Belfield. Levi Belfield turned his chair around and put his back to the person that was interviewing him and just said, no comment, no comment, no comment, no comment. And this twonk did it as well. Anyway, then another interesting thing that helped contribute towards his conviction, despite there not being a body, was his brother Alex. Now let's have a look at his brother. Now, the police encouraged his brother to go and speak to him, just in the hope, this is Alex now, in the hope that they may be able to get some information from him. And this is a photo of Alex with Stuart when they were young. Gosh, you just think, why did he, when you see these predators when they're younger like that, what changes them? Presumably then he hadn't done anything horrible to any women. He looks about, 15? Maybe he had already started. Who knows? So the police talked to Alex, and he said that just 10 minutes in Stuart's environment speaking to him was all he needed to be convinced he was guilty. So detectives had suggested the meeting, but they said to him, don't confront him, don't be challenging. We just want you, hoping that he may tell you where Danielle is, but don't get angry with him, don't confront him. And Alex said, if I was the guy accused of doing something like this, what would I say to my brother? I would say, this is bullshit. It's outrageous. I felt that if he was innocent, he would have started at the same place as I would. But he didn't, Alex said. So I knew immediately. I thought, you're lying to me by omission. He couldn't look him in the eye. And inside 10 minutes, he knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, according to Alex, that Campbell had abducted Danielle. And he said he thought to himself, either you've got her locked up somewhere now, or you've killed her already. So he knew straight away. Well, he probably knew his brother better than most. And it's true, if your brother walked in and you were innocent, you'd be like, I can't believe what they've done. I can't believe they've arrested me for this. How can they think that I could have done this? Blah, 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 blah. But he couldn't even look his own brother in the face because he knew he'd done it. So, and this meant that Alex knew that Stuart had done it. So the trial happened in 2002. And the prosecutor, Orlando Pownall, told Chelmsford Crown Court that although Danielle's body had not been found, there can be no doubt she is dead. He said, Mr. Campbell was sexually attracted to Danielle. His fixation for her manifested itself in a number of ways. During the period immediately preceding her disappearance, it's clear that Daniel had grown tired of his offences. Finally, on the 28th of July 2005, when she would have been aged 19, Danielle was officially declared dead. So, after his trial, it was revealed that in 1989, Campbell had received a 12-month suspended sentence for forcibly detaining a 14-year-old girl in his house and taking indecent photos of her. So, this guy, he'd done it for ages. He just was... He was a habitual offender. He was never going to change. And unfortunately, it happened into Danielle's life, unfortunately for her. Anyway, in 2004, Campbell was granted leave to appeal against his conviction on the grounds that evidence of his obsession with Danielle and his interest in schoolgirls should have been excluded at his trial, and on the further grounds that one of the jurors, the next door neighbour of a police officer involved in the case, should have been discharged. But luckily, in 2005, his appeal was dismissed and his sentence of life imprisonment stood. In July 2005, an inquest by the coroner was held into Danielle Jones's disappearance, and the verdict of unlawful killing was returned. That's probably what led. That's probably what led to her being declared. Because on that she was officially declared dead on that same day, 28th of July. So police interviews with Campbell in prison reported that he still refused to tell them where he disposed of her body. Now, there was a little bit of a glimmer of hope in 2017. Essex and Kent police forces began searching a garage block in Stifford Clays, Thurrock, after receiving new information, and they did not rule out that they were looking for a body. It was reported that similar information regarding suspicious activity around the garages had been received at the time Danielle disappeared, but not followed up on in the initial investigation. And a spokesperson for Essex Police said the force was working to ascertain why these were not searched as part of the original investigation. However, it was subsequently announced that no discovery had been made. Now let's just see, how long was he given? Because he's up for parole already. Which is terrifying, isn't it? He was 20 years minimum, and he was jailed in 2002. So, they're going to have to go through this parole thing all the time now. Now, he's been denied parole last year. It's likely that he will not be given parole for as long as he refuses to say where her body is. That's just one reason he may one day say. Maybe one day he will say where she is. If he wants parole, he's probably got to, because we have this law now, Helen's Law. So that was a result of a poor woman in Ireland who her daughter went missing, and her body was never found, and she campaigned for Helen's Law, which came into, I believe it's now law. Let me just see. Now, the killer of her daughter, so Helen's Law says, in cases of murder, manslaughter, indecent photographs or pseudo-photographs of children, Helen's Law places a legal duty on the parole board to consider non-disclosure of the victim or victim's remains when deciding upon release, where the board believes they have knowledge of it. Now, this was because of the murder of Helen McCourt. Again, I will do a video about that. I need to do a more of a deep dive about it. Helen McCourt went missing in 1988, and Ian Sims was convicted of her murder. He was given a life sentence with only a minimum of only 16 years, but she has never been found, and he has now died. Ian Sims has now died. So, it's unlikely that she will be found, though people are still looking for her. A mum, I think, is still alive, and a mum, as long as a mum's got breath in her body, I expect she'll be lucky. Yeah, Marie McCourt, she's devoted herself to helping similar victims, etc. I mean, where do they put them? Where can they put them so quickly? No, he was another one. He didn't have much time to dispose of her body. You know, where can you put someone so quickly like that? Because you presume that in a lot of these murder cases, they're not planned. We have to presume that this was not planned, or was it planned? Did he already have a hiding place planned for her? So he was denied parole 24th of January 2023. And in the meantime, Danielle's parents, they have to suffer every year knowing that they can't bring their daughter home. It's cold, you know, as we always say, it's cold comfort, but it is some comfort. Bringing their daughter home, giving her a burial. You know, it's very important. I don't think we can underestimate the importance of a funeral, of finding remains, even though it doesn't bring somebody back. Even in the most primitive societies, they have funerals. It's part of the rites of passage, isn't it? Of life, you know, the things that's like just part of the cycle of things, even though you don't expect a young person to die, but the funeral gives something, some peace, some resolution, knowing where they are. Whether you believe it, you know, I'm a great believer that it doesn't matter about your physical remains, you know, that your people that you love are always with you, whether you can go visit their physical remains or not. But there's something about the process. I'm just thinking, if you imagine your loved one dying and you couldn't even have a funeral. People were bad enough during COVID when they couldn't have proper funerals. At least they could have funerals, but you know, nobody could go to it, or hardly anyone could go to it. But at least there was something. But that was upsetting for people. But imagine, you know, it's part of that, you know, getting together for the funeral, all the people that love them, talking afterwards, going to the wake, laughing and joking in the end about them, because you start talking about all the daft things that they did, all the happy memories of them. You know, it's all part of, it's so important. You can't underestimate the importance of a funeral. It's not just an insignificant thing. It's a big thing. Now, I'm sure they've had some sort of a memorial service, and that can be similar, but still not knowing where your daughter is. That would be how it would feel, isn't it? Like they were just lying out in the cold somewhere, even though obviously Danielle is not there anymore. Danielle is with them. Of course she is. She's floating around the universe probably, and you know, friends with Millie Dowler or any of these other girls that sort of unfortunately suffered the same fate. But as far as the family that are still on this earthly plane, the funeral is important. It's so important. You know, remember with the Southport stabbings, and one of the parents, Elsie Dott's parents, that called the funeral, wanted it referred to as Elsie's special day, because it's otherwise. It is a special day. It's part of the rites of passage. Elsie's special day came too soon, of course it did, but it's still a special day, and at least they could, you know, show how much they loved her, and people could pay their respects, etc. So, yeah, not having Danielle's remains, it's a terrible thing, isn't it, for the family? And it makes him even worse. It's like with Patrick Stevenson and Samantha Murphy. It's almost worse than the act itself, you know, because it's ongoing. It goes on over years. Every day that you don't say where their body is, you're still offending. You're still offending day in, day out, you know, more than the original offence. So as I said, I've tried to envision. I felt Danielle around me a lot while I've been making this video, planning this video. It's been a week in the making of research and, you know, in between everything else that's going on, obviously work and other YouTube videos. So it's taken quite a long time to put together all the information. And in that time, I've felt, as I say, Danielle around me, and I've tried to envisage what happened to her, and I just keep getting this picture of a rope and a car. But I'm going to sit again sometime now that I've actually finished the video, my mind, because it's been sort of lurking at the back of my mind. I haven't finished the video, and maybe meditate on it and see if I can get anything else. But yeah, rope and a car, very clear. But anyway, so did he plan it? Now, did this man plan it? Did this twonk plan it? Because it makes you wonder if he planned that morning to go out and get her. Had he prepared somewhere already to hide her body? Was he already thinking, well, if she doesn't go along with what I'm going to get her to do, I'm just going to kill her? Had he already decided that? And did he have a place in mind? Because he really did not have much time to dispose of her. And is it because she was still resisting him? Maybe she'd given in before, but now she was saying no, no, no. Maybe she was too frightened to tell her parents about it because it had all come out that maybe something had happened between them before. Maybe he was blackmailing her with photos. Where are the photos of Danielle? Because, as I say, I just can't believe for a minute that if he took photos of all these other girls and everything, that he never took any photos of Danielle. Why did he keep all the evidence in the loft? Did he think, police don't go into the loft? Ridiculous. I think he just couldn't bear to get rid of it. It was just like his, part of what he owned her, and not only her, but his other victims as well. So, but I do think that this case is definitely another example to remember. Many monsters hide in plain sight. They're married, they have children, they're outwardly normal and respectable. They're not gibbering weirdos that come out only on a full moon. They groom their victims carefully, and also the families. They are experts. Stuart Campbell was a real expert. He became obsessed with Danielle, and he was determined to have her at any cost. So Danielle's family are desperate to bring her home and give her a proper funeral. As I said, funerals are vital, even in primitive societies, as a rite of passage, and they're essential to deal with the grieving process. While I was researching this case, I watched a criminologist discussing that these freaks actually think they are in a relationship with their victim. She had spoken to many predators that said this, even about children as young as 5 years old. They love them. They're in a relationship with them, according to them, and they believe they love them back, even 5-year-olds. This, of course, is not love. This is warped, evil, perverted obsession. For Stuart Campbell, not saying where her body is his last form of possessing her, last way to possess her, along with the memories that he will relive over and over again in his warped mind. Now, as I said earlier, a big question for me is, why did Danielle not tell anybody? Just as why did Madeline Soto not tell anybody? Why do so many of these victims, even with seem supportive families around them and friends, cannot bring themselves to tell anybody? Is it shame? Is it embarrassment? What is it? What stops them? What stops them exposing these freaks? Look at that picture of Danielle. It's so beautiful. So, Danielle, sleep safe in the arms of angels, and we hope and pray that one day your family can bring you home and lay you to rest in a proper and respectful manner. I'm going to show some pictures of Danielle, play some music, and then I'm going to play my exit video. Thank you for watching, and take care, and until I see you again, may your gods always go with you.